Hi everyone, this is a slightly different voice and face on the PinkUn today, and this is because it's Hodgey's Hacks. I'm going to be speaking to the three main Norwich City correspondents, Paddy, Michael and Dave here, and we're going to be talking a bit about their careers, their motivations in journalism and what it's like being a Norwich City reporter, so something a little bit different. What's it like covering the club that you love?
Yeah, well, it's obviously changed the complexion of what it's like to be a supporter. Being from Norfolk and growing up supporting the club, former season ticket holder, clearly once you're covering the club you have to put a different hat on really and look at it differently. So it's something that I'm probably still getting to grips with to an extent, in that it takes away something which is quite a big part of your life to an extent, because you know I can't celebrate goals or big moments like you do as a fan, but equally you get to see behind the scenes and under the bonnet, I suppose, is quite a nice phrase for it. And
what I mean, I believe.
Yeah, I did hear you use it the other day. I think that's why it's probably fresh in the mind. But yeah, it's also a privileged position, and I think it's advantageous. I mean, Paddy, of course, as everyone knows, isn't from Norfolk, and he's a Coventry fan, and that's great from our point of view that we've got somebody who's got that sort of obviously neutral point of view. But equally, from a local paper's standpoint, you obviously have a relationship with the club because you cover everything. It's not like a national newspaper or a broadcaster who roll up every now and again. We cover Norwich City every day. Everything that's going on, we want to be across it. And people like myself who have an interest in the club as well, their friends and family all support the club as well. So you equally, it helps to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on at the club, I think, to a certain extent, and hopefully that helps you to reflect the sort of fairly what the supporters' feelings are of what's going on at that time. Yeah,
but is it quite difficult to get that detachment from being a fan and then actually reporting?
I haven't found it that difficult, to be honest. I suppose everybody's different. There's lots of different types of football supporters, and maybe when I was younger, I was overexcited and calling the referee this and that from the stand and whatever, and just committing fully to the moment. And when it's a goal, you go crazy.
Whereabouts did you sit?
Originally when I was growing up, I had a season ticket in the River End when my stepdad used to buy our tickets, and then when I was old enough to buy my own season ticket through my first part-time job, I sat in the Barclay Lower. So I joined in with the singing and all that sort of stuff when I was a teenager. But as I grew up, I became a more considered football fan, and knowing by that point already that I was going to be a journalist. So I calmed down and tried to look at the game a bit more calmly and not see it through yellow and green tinted glasses, I suppose.
Analytically. So you say you knew you wanted to be a journalist from quite young. What age are we talking?
Pretty young. That's probably something that I always said I was going to do. I remember I met Roy Waller when I was something like 11 or 12 at Carrow Road. Me and my dad were on a tour of Carrow Road, of course BBC Radio Norfolk's commentator for many years, and we bumped into Roy outside the trophy room where Radio Norfolk had an office for a while, and my dad sort of introduced me and said, he wants to do sports journalism, and he was like, oh great, come and have a look, and sort of showed me the little Radio Norfolk office that they had there, and
brilliant.
He was like, what do you want to do in sports journalism? And I just literally, being a kid, said, I want to do your job.
Quite right.
and he was fine with that. So yeah, from quite a young age, and then once I was at college age and I realised there was sports journalism courses popping up, then that was sort of the obvious route to how I wanted to get to where I wanted to be.
Yeah, some people watching this might actually be aware, but there's one thing that me and Dave have got in common other than devilish good looks, and that is the fact we both went to Staffordshire Uni.
Yes. In lovely Stoke.
Yes, lovely Stoke-on-Trent, where somebody else is tonight. Wigan, I think, are pitching up there tonight. But yeah, we've got that in common. We were there at different times though, weren't we? So when were you at university?
2005 to 8 I was there. So I think the course had only been running 2 or 3 years, and there certainly wasn't the amount of sports journalism courses that there are around the country now, and clearly in that time journalism has changed a great deal. Absolutely. As well, hasn't it? So the stuff we were learning is probably pretty much obsolete to what they teach them now. I mean, I didn't have a Twitter account, of course, at that point. No. Facebook only came in when that makes me sound old, doesn't it? Facebook only came in my second year, I think, or once it had sort of come over from America, and you still had to have a college or university email to be able to register, didn't you? So yeah, things have
Did you have a Bebo or a Bebo, as I've heard some people call it?
I had a face party.
Interesting. A MySpace?
I think I had a MySpace for the music side of things, but yeah, I was kind of slow on the uptake on Facebook and stuff as well. So, I'd imagine it's hugely different. Although some of our tutors are still there. I think you followed directly on to me, didn't you? Did you start 2008?
Yeah. So it was 2009 to 2012 that I was there. I graduated just in time for the Olympics, and then had nothing to do with it in terms of career-wise, which was unfortunate.
It's a great course, though, isn't it? And the guys that run it are very well qualified. And Mitch Price was, and still is, I think. The sort of chief sports journalism lecturer, and he was Match of the Day director, producer, that sort of thing for many years, wasn't he? So some really top level guys to teach you the tricks of the trade. Yeah,
we were very lucky in that regard. Let's get on a bit to speaking about what it's like reporting for Norwich. So who out of all of the players and managers that you've dealt with in your time at the club, maybe not even just the first team, but even with the younger sort of kids, and I know you've got a bit of experience there, who's been your favourite person to deal with, and why? Can you give us maybe a scenario where someone's been really good or really helped you? Or?
Well, Neil Adams was great when he was manager straight away. I mean, from literally in January, February time, I'd been interviewing him at Vicarage Road after an FA Youth Cup defeat. Actually, I think they lost 4-1 to Watford in the fourth round. So Neil was still, under 18s coach on the back of his previous success with the FA Youth Cup team in 2013, and then months later he's in charge of the first team. And I remember being there on the press conference when him and Gary Holt and the other chap who was the coach that came in with him, Mark Robson, I think his name. I have to remind myself
in the memory banks there.
And Neil, from his previous days of working with Radio Norfolk, was somebody that we obviously knew, and he knew us a little bit. So it was, although it was a bit difficult when you had to ask him the tough questions, you knew you were dealing with a nice guy there. But I can't say that there's anybody that jumps out at me that has been particularly bad
well, you've just ruined my next question, which was going to be, who's been a nightmare?
There's ones who are not particularly chatty. I mean,
we're going to name names.
We name Lewis Grabban was never a chatty one, was he? Grant Hanley at the moment is clearly not a chatty one, but that's kind of part of his charm, isn't it?
Yeah, does he's talking on the field?
Exactly. He's a man's man, isn't he? Alpha male. But yeah, I mean, James Maddison was a great kid to chat to when he was first coming through, and another one who sticks out as well, Jamal Lewis. When we first spoke to him, we were sort of a bit blown away by how confident and how much of a good talker he was, and that sort of stood out. And that's clearly something that the club are getting right to an extent in terms of education of young men, I suppose, because speaking to other lads who've come through, Max Aarons, for instance, who's now coming into the first team, is very similar. So in that he's confident and he's a good talker, and Spyro, another one in the under-23 squad. So yeah, there's no one that I think I've really fallen out. I mean, Alex Neil was difficult at times. You had to think carefully about your questions. If you left a stray word in or something that he didn't like, he had the eyes, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
You knew you were in the bad books pretty quickly with Alex. But yeah, on the whole, I suppose that's a reflection of Norwich City as a club, isn't it? That it's a friendly club, a community club, and you generally don't get sort of nasty types, and that's why when Paul Lambert and McNally came in and had their success, everyone was sort of loving it at the time, weren't they? That there was some guys with almost a nasty streak to them in the club.
Yeah, sometimes you need that in football, to be fair.
Yeah.
Other flip side of the coin, most embarrassing moment in your career so far. Have you had any gaffes or anything that you've done where you look back and you go, oh my goodness? Well, you think I could tell you about one of mine, which is when the ringtone on my phone burst out with, was it Get Lucky, I think was the ringtone at the time.
What, Pharrell?
Yeah. And yeah, Alec Neil was sitting there and he's like that, looking at my phone, and I call my wee sister Kirstine. Sorry, her name's Kirstine. I call her Mink after Minnie the Minx in the Beano. And he's like that, who's Mink? So that was quite embarrassing. What about you?
I can't think of many that are particularly bad, to be honest. I've told a story before on the TNC podcast / video of how Cameron Jerome swore at me at Wembley, despite them having won that game, I managed to get him to swear. I won't repeat what he said, but he wasn't saying it angrily. It was basically, I said, Cam, it didn't go that well for you in the Premier League last time, but you're going back on the back of scoring 21 goals and full of confidence. So are you really confident you can score goals in the Premier League when you get back there? And he said, nah, that's beep. It's not just about strikers scoring goals, it's about the team, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, he went back to Premier League and didn't really score many goals. So that was why it was a just question. The one that stands out would probably be Mick McCarthy, ahead of... one of the Derby games. I can't remember which one it was precisely. It would have been before the first leg of the playoff semi-final. I went down to his press conference during the week and waited my turn, let all the local guys get their questions out of the way. So waited till I was last, and then said, Mick, cards on the table. I'm from north of the border. Just come down from Norwich to ask you a few questions. To which the rest of the press all sort of burst out laughing, and he said, in his brusque Yorkshire accent, which I'll make a vague attempt at, hello, young man, how are you? And I didn't hear him say, how are you? Because everyone burst out laughing. So I just sort of went, hi, and cracked on with my question. And then he went, oh, I'm fine, thanks very much for asking, and obviously thought that I'd been rude, but I couldn't hear him. So, but then from that point, he was actually very good with me, so that was fine. But I went back the following season and did a scouting report on them at some point, and I tried to ask Mick again about the Derby game that was coming on the following weekend, and they had drawn 0-0 against Leeds. They were pretty awful, and he wasn't
really Ipswich under McCarthy drawing 0-0.
Yeah,
cannot believe that.
About 14,000 people there, I think, something like that. But he wasn't in the mood that day, and it was just, we'll have a press conference about that later in the week, young man, and we can talk about that game then. Right,
that's very helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was a worthwhile trip.
Yeah, sounds it. Proudest moment for you?
Proudest moment?
Or achievement?
Yeah. Well, it was great being able to cover Norwich at Wembley, of course.
Oh, amazing.
I was quite lucky that the semi-final, I was able to actually go and watch it with my dad, and I was sat in the south stand and able to sort of enjoy that one as a fan, as the opportunity came up, and we had enough staff to sort of cope without me on the day. But at Wembley, I actually it was a pretty hectic time, or that weekend. The day before had been Radio 1's big weekend at Earlham Park, which I'd got tickets for and had friends staying and stuff. So we'd been and seen Taylor Swift and Foo Fighters and stuff the night before, and then next morning get up early, go to Wembley, do all the.
That is some weekend, man.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't quite finished because that was a long day, and we got home at 2 in the morning or something. There was a lot of work to be done. We had a 16 pace, something maybe even bigger than that, to turn around for Tuesday, and then the Tuesday morning I moved house. So I then moved house and got into work at about 2 in the afternoon, and then did another sort of 10-hour shift. But the thing that probably made me sort of most proud was the evening news on the day. We had a special evening news on that Monday, which came out in the evening like it used to back in the day, which required a front page write-off of I think 200 words, which literally had to be filed on the whistle, and obviously needed to be good because they wanted it out on the street straight away. And that was one of my main responsibilities during the game for post-match. And thankfully Norwich made it very smooth and easy for us, didn't they? Because they went 2-0 up and never looked like giving it up. So I was able to get that written, and I was happy with it, and file it bang on full time. So yeah, I was quite proud of that.
Yeah, that's a thing called a runner. That's one of the more challenging tasks you've got as a sports journalist. Just interesting what you were saying there, though. I mean, it's a lot of work, because a lot of people think, yeah, the job's really glamorous, you get to watch football, all of that side of it, but it's tiring as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be a lot of hours. I mean, you can't really complain because you get to watch football for a living, can't you? But equally, there are, for those who follow me on Twitter and saw me at, for instance, the under-23s game in February at Colney this year, when it was heavy snow, absolutely freezing cold, and I'm one of sort of 15 people there covering a game, Sean Raggett got sent off. I think they beat Derry 2-1 or something like that, and that's where you think this is pretty unglamorous. And yeah, when yes, the nature of my job, after the games, Paddy, when there's the three of us there, Paddy will shoot off to interview the manager. Michael will go to interview the player, and I will stay in the press box, and I'm doing various things, updating web stories, uploading new things, and sorting things for the paper if it's a midweek game as well. So I tend to just be sat there on my own in the hot or cold, whatever. If it's hot, I'm being attacked by moths because I'm the only one there, and if it's cold, there's no one around you anymore, so you suddenly can feel it. So it's not particularly glamorous at times, and obviously there are long hours on the road at time, and it's not great for your diet eating in the eating service station food all the time and things like that. But at the end of the day, the buzz from being at Wembley when Norwich get promoted to the Premier League and then getting to interview several of the players an hour later makes it all worth it. But equally, being at Millwall when they've lost 4-0 and have been terrible, or
it can be tough.
Brighton 5-0 and having to interview an absolutely distraught Russell Martin, who looked like he
that was some interview. I remember that
it was an intense one. That sticks in your mind, because I thought Russ could have quite happily cried. Really, he was so fired up that day, and that was a horrible day as well. So it balances out, but I think you always have to remind yourself that you're fortunate to be in the position you are, because frankly, there are plenty of people who work in jobs they don't want to do them. They go in, they have to clock in, clock out, and they would love to get the opportunity to go and cover football. So sometimes when you want to have a little moan, you just need to prod yourself and remind yourself of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good message.